I started out on the East Coast and I was bound for God knows where, with a worn out copy of On the Road and the wind in my hair. I was chasing my shadow all the while the sun burnt off the dew. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. Hey guys, Mike Plume here. Welcome to the story behind the song and the song behind the story. In this week's episode, I'm going to be covering a song that was written back in June of 2004, and the song is called Looking for You, a travelogue of sorts. Back in March of 2003, Jenny and I decided to leave Tennessee and move back to Canada, Toronto to be exact. And we're going to be leaving, I guess, probably in early May or something. So March and April we spent those last couple months packing and saying goodbye to all our friends and stuff. And I got together for a week's worth of co-writes with a bunch of buddies of mine. Sean Locke, Billy Montana, Kenny Thomas, my usual crew. And in the back of my mind, I knew that I wasn't going to be doing any co-writing anymore, if ever. It sort of felt like I'd come to the end of the road as far as being a songwriter. And so, I got together with my pals and we wrote some songs. And then after that week, or maybe a week or so after, whatever it was, my publishing deal was up for renewal. And I knew I was burnt out. So I talked to my publisher at Blue Water Music, Brownlee Ferguson, and I said, look, man, you can renew my option if you want, and I'll gladly take the paycheck. But I don't know if I have any more songs in me. I certainly have none right now, and I don't know when any will show up. So I think he appreciated my honesty, and just chose to we chose to part ways at that point when my publishing deal ended that year. And so after that week of co-writing, which would have been, like I said, March, April 2003, I put my guitar away and didn't write another song for almost 16 months. I did a couple of shows. I did a little tour. I just released an album called Table for One in April of that year as well. But I had a feeling things were winding down for me. When I wasn't doing a show, which was very rare, my guitar never left the case. It just stayed in its case in the closet and never came out. I was burnt out, basically. So we packed up, we moved to Toronto, we showed up there, we rolled into town in August of 2003 and started our life there and got a little apartment and just sort of had a nice quiet little life in Toronto. But I guess in the back of my mind, subconsciously, I still needed some sort of artistic way of expressing myself or an artistic release or something like that. Because one day Jenny and I were walking down Queen Street, just past the Horseshoe, heading east along the north side of Queen Street. And there was a little arts and crafts shop there, and I'd never seen it before. I'd walked by it a million times, but I'd never seen it. But for some reason, we walked in there, and 15 minutes later, I walked out with an easel, a bunch of canvas, some paints, a palette, a bunch of brushes, and everything but a little beret to start my career as a painter. And so I painted for the next, 9 or 10 months. And the whole time, with the exception of the odd show, which would have been, once or twice a month at the most, usually at the Cadillac Lounge down on Queen Street West. With the exception of the odd gig, the guitar never left the case. And then I was booked for a show. Jenny and I were expecting the arrival of Ruby Tallulah in late June, early July 2004. And I'd been booked to play this little, I don't know, like some sort of little festival, beer fest type thing down in the beaches area of Toronto. And anyway, so I show up, and it was just, I think it was on like a Thursday or something, and it was like this little beer gardens thing, and there was nobody at the gig. Nobody. Zero. And I remember thinking, just me and Jenny. And Jenny at this point was 9 months pregnant. And I remember being not thrilled with the way things had unfolded with my career path. And just you get to that point. It's at a point that I seem to run into. Sometimes it feels like daily, where I question my every decision I've made in my life since I turned 16. But anyway, so yeah, there's the places. There are tables for miles, and probably 300 tables with all set up to sell beer. And maybe this was I don't know. Maybe it was me. More than likely it was me. But there was nobody there. Zero. Just me and Jenny and the sound man way at the back of the room. And so I think showtime was, I don't know, from 7 till 8 or something. So Jenny and I were hanging around there. It was 6 o'clock. We just paid a fortune to park our car there, the whole thing. And I was not happy. I think I've already said that a couple times. But Jenny was just sort of sitting on the side of the stage, and my guitar was sitting there, and I was sort of, sulking, I guess. And Jenny picked up my guitar, and she started playing this chord progression. It went like this. That last chord, that C minor, from the C major to the C minor, that caught my ear. I'd heard those chords before, G, D, E minor, C. In fact, those were the pretty much the 4 chords I've written every song in my career with. But on the turnaround, she went down to the C minor. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what made her think to go to that chord. But when she did, it caught my attention. And it was the first thing that I'd heard in probably a year and a half that excited me. That part. That was it. I just thought, wow, I said, hey, that's really cool. And then that was it. And I went about and did my little hour show and, packed up my guitar. And we went back to our apartment up in Forest Hill. And that was it. That was the end of it. And then we were about a week or so away from Ruby showing up. The next morning, I poured a cup of coffee, like I did this morning. Anyway, next morning I poured a cup of coffee. And for the first time in about 16 months, I took my guitar out of its guitar case just to noodle on the guitar, and I started playing that chord progression and over and over and over. And when it came time for me to start singing, I just sang. I started out on the East Coast, and I was bound for God knows where. And that line, like that C minor chord that Jenny played, really caught my attention because I didn't know where this guy in the song was going. I knew that he was starting out on the East Coast, which is where I started out, on the East Coast, with a worn-out copy of On the Road, which I have right here, my worn-out copy of On the Road. It's all gaff taped together, and it's got a lot of miles on it. That book. I remember when I first read this book. There's a little introduction to the book, and Jack Kerouac was talking about how it took him 7 years to collect the information that went into this book, and then when he was ready to write it, he sat down and wrote it in a week and a half, just pretty much nonstop. He had one long sheet of paper, just a big roll of paper, so he didn't have to keep switching out the paper in the typewriter. It just spewed out in one, week and a half session or something like that. And that is kind of what happened with this song. Most songs I write, most people write, are 3 verses: verse, chorus, guitar solo, repeat first verse, end of song. But this song, I knew he was starting on the East Coast, and I didn't know where he was going, and I didn't know who he was looking for. But then I started just thinking of various road trips that the guys and I had been on over the years, like the first time we drove to Nashville, and then made our way down to Memphis, and we went for ribs at the Rendezvous, which is I had first heard about in the song Memphis in the Meantime by John Hyatt. And then I drove to New Orleans for Jazz Fest one year, and then drove to Texas, cut across to Austin. I did all that. These were not all in the same trip, but these were all in trips over the space of probably 15 years or something like that. Breaking down Santa Fe, all that kind of stuff, and into Colorado, and then Cheyenne, and then crossing back into Alberta, and then taking the Coquihalla up and over, and then down into Vancouver, and then all the way down the coast along the Pacific Ocean, all the way down to Los Angeles. The guys and I did these trips, over the space of a bunch of years. But so I started the song. He was on the East Coast, and I just went and found all these little road trips that we had done, or I had done at various times of my life, and I just wrote about them. And then the last verse is I spent a week, or the second last verse is I spent a week beneath the stars outside Santa Cruz. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. The guys and I did that. There was a time back in July, August 1999, we were touring on the West Coast, and we ended up in Northern California for about a week, and playing around San Francisco and Santa Cruz and all those towns up that way, Big Sur and all up there. Salinas, and basically like a Steinbeck novel. And we had this big touring bus, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun, and it was made for good traveling, comfortable traveling. And we parked that bus at the beach for a week and a half, and so we'd go out, we'd do the gig. After the gig, we'd pack up the bus, and we'd drive back to our little beach spot. And we'd park in the parking lot, and we'd get up the next morning around, 9 or 10 in the morning, and then we'd make our way to the beach, and we'd just hang out there all day, and then, later in the afternoon, we'd all get ready, and we'd head to the next club, do the gig, come back, rinse, repeat, park at the beach, get up the next morning. And it was it may have been, I don't know if it was the happiest I've ever been, but it was a pretty cool week, man. It was just going to sleep with the windows open and hearing the Pacific Ocean, and just the smell of the salt water and that nice breeze coming through. It was just it was a great way to spend a week and a half or so. And so all those verses wound up, all that kind of stuff wound up in this song. And then in the last verse, it says, "This song ain't got no end, and hell, this song's just begun. And if you spend your time pretending that you've won races, you ain't even run." It took me 10 verses to realize that the guy in the song, me, who he was looking for was himself. And I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming until I wrote that last verse. I had no idea. And of everywhere I've been, the song ain't got no end, and man, this song has just begun. And if you spend your time pretending that you've won races, you ain't run. When all the while, all you need was something to ring true. And of everywhere you've been, and of everywhere I've been, I was looking for you. How do you do? And yeah, that was I've never written 10 verses for a song before. I've barely written 10 verses for 4 songs, but this song needed 10 verses to tell the story. And I don't know, man, it's one of my favorite songs of mine, and for some reason I don't know why I don't play it more. I need to play it more. It needs to find its way into more shows, and maybe I'll do that. I think I need to do that. But yeah, so I wrote that song. I'm always talking about how my songs take, years and years to write, and they do. But this song was written in an afternoon, 10 verses in an afternoon. But I think it took me 16 months to collect those 10 verses, or not even 16 months. It probably took me 16 years to collect those verses and then write them all down in one shot, kind of like the Kerouac story. And and then after I wrote that song, I put my guitar away, and I don't think I wrote another song for another year and a half. That week in particular, where I wrote Travelogue, I wrote a couple of other songs, but it was interesting how I needed to. I guess having not written songs for a year and a half, 16 months or something like that, there was a bit of a backlog, and so these songs, all these little ideas and stuff, kind of all fell out into this one song. And yeah, thanks for listening. Travelogue of sorts. I started out on the East Coast and I was bound for God knows where, with a worn out copy of On the Road and the wind in my hair, chasing my shadow all the while the sun burnt off the dew. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. Yeah. Well, across the Appalachians and on down into Tennessee, the I-40 into Nashville and the Grand Ole Opry. Spent the night in Memphis with friends at the Rendezvous. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. Yeah. Well, I followed the Mississippi all the way to New Orleans, and down in the French Quarter for a plate of rice and beans. It's a town of ghosts and gypsies and jambalaya too. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. I said I'm looking for you, babe. Cut across to Austin and I hung out on 6th Street for hot and sweaty music, cold beer and little sleep. I slept in my car in a parking lot beneath the Texas moon. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. I said I'm looking for you. Better part of the next day just across that Lone Star State, El Paso, then New Mexico, and on up into Santa Fe. My car broke down outside of town. I had to sit for a day or two. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. Said I'm looking for you. Rolled into Colorado, humming Rocky Mountain High. I put the top down on the Eldorado, man, and just enjoyed the ride. I made Cheyenne by nightfall, left the next afternoon. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. I said I'm looking for you, babe. Rolled into Montana, but I had to travel on. I crossed into Alberta like an Ian Tyson song. The wild rose country beneath the sky so blue. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. I said I'm looking for you, babe. Trans-Canada Highway, well, I cross a great divide. Pocahontas to Vancouver, all along this mystery ride. And when I crossed back into Washington, I picked up my first clue. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. I said I'm looking for you, babe. Tacoma to LA, all the way on 101. Stopping along the way to watch another setting sun. I spent a week beneath the stars outside Santa Cruz. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm looking for you. Said I'm looking for you, babe. Got no ending, man, this song has just begun. And if you spend your time pretending you've won races you ain't run, when all the while all you need was something to ring true. And of everywhere I've been, well, I was looking for you.